All right, good afternoon all. Hey, thank you Tim and Omar, who I don't think's on the line, for setting this up. It's been a great partnership working with Spark Plus, and in particular some of the interest we've had out of Asia, Southeast Asia and North Asia for our stock over the last few months has been great. And I guess it shows a recognition from some of the family offices there about, well, A, the ASX, but B, just sort of the overall tenor and thematic of payments. What am I doing here? So we've also got our own disclaimer, and essentially this is accurate as best as we can work out up to today. There is no intention that I go through anything today that has not been formally disclosed to the ASX. However, we do have a little surprise, so it's sort of hopefully that's interesting. Okay, so just for those that don't know us, we are a digital banking and payments company, and that extends into what's called issuing, acquiring, cross-border payments, and subscription billing. And so in terms of an absolute theory, by bringing together the major components of payments, we can in the long run bring that towards a banking proposition where we source our customers from our payments relationships and create long-term banking customers and cross-selling opportunities for those customers across the various payment services and eventually banking services. So building infrastructure, building an ecosystem, and increasingly being able to cross-sell and provide additional services for those customers. A very brief history. We listed 5 years ago, and the first couple of years, in some ways you might say, we were on the slow train. We're very much a technology business, and the last 2.5 years have been very focused on really that horrible word pivot, but changing the business so we are a financial services business. Major activity 18 months ago when we got awarded a Visa principal issuer license. We also happen to have a number of licenses from ASIC and Austrac and some regulatory authorities overseas. We've done a couple of acquisitions. One was Vasco Pay, one was Immersion, that have really lifted our processing business units. And then over the last 6 months or so, we've really been able to show the market some of the new companies that we've been able to partner with: Google Pay, Samsung Pay, Marqeta, and so forth. So serious international companies who've been able to look at our tech, our compliance, our people, and say, okay, we're on board. We're happy to work with Novatti. We see them as a great business and partner to work with. Now, by way of example, the Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, to have those services or onto our card issuing business, essentially in Australia, it is the banks plus about 3 other companies or 4 other companies that are at that stage. It's reasonably rarefied atmosphere, and we are one of those players. eMerchants is probably the best known company that would have equivalent technology and accreditations. So we generate revenue, if you look over on the right there, in a number of ways. Most of them are related towards payment processing, whether it be issuing cards, acquiring transactions, or payment acceptance is another name, cross-border payments. We also do have some underlying revenues from technology services, and we also have a strong growing business in the area of subscription billing. So multiple revenue streams, and last year we did $11.9 million total revenue, and as we'll see in a minute, for the half year just passed, our total revenue is about $8.25 million. Just for the absolute thematic, growth in digital versus non-digital transactions, and there's all sorts of data points like this, but essentially the reduction in cash versus the increase in digital transactions. This is one set of numbers we're quoting from the Combank, and we've seen from COVID just this absolute increase in the thematic of growth in digital transactions. It's a digital transformation of the financial services sector, and we think that we are absolutely exposed to that and giving our investors a great exposure to that. So just in terms of the half-year update, our sales revenue was $7.35 million. I did mention another number, $8.2 million, which is our total revenue, which included some government grants, both R&D and JobKeeper. We're sort of basically growing the business in a sales sense at about 49-50% year on year, and we've done that for a number of years. And at the end of December, we had $9 million of cash available. Our processing revenue, which is really the part of the business that we're really focused on driving, that's growing at 59-60% year on year. And at the moment, we are investing strongly into further accelerate that growth. So hopefully what our investors will see over the next couple of years is that growth rate continues, in fact, hopefully at a much higher rate. And you'll see that we become a very highly valued business for the processing and payment transaction revenues and the growth rate therein. Again, just looking back at the last 6 months, bringing in a number of these partnerships, Apple Pay, Ripple, Google Pay, and so forth, adding to some of our existing partnerships, Visa, Alipay, Marqeta, and others that we'd previously announced. And you look at it, just even on that slide there, 10 major international brands that in some cases we are the main partner for those companies in Australia. In some other cases, we're one of many. But, we are deemed as an acceptable, serious player by those sorts of companies, which we think is outstanding. And I think just, again, what we've been talking about over the last number of months is where's the growth coming from? A lot of international growth. We're focused on increasing our licenses. So we've got a license in New Zealand. We announced that we would launch immersion in the US this quarter, which we're absolutely on track to do. And the Ripple partnership extends our reach into Southeast Asia, noting that we already do quite a bit of work there, in particular in Malaysia at the moment. So you're starting to see sort of this extension of our Australian business and proof points in a number of international markets. For an absolute summary of where's the growth coming from for this financial year and really beyond, let's start at the super thematic, the demand for digital transformation of all sorts of industries, but in particular financial services. We'll be leveraging our existing platforms. And when we talk about platforms, that's technology, it's people, it's licenses, it's our interworking with other companies. So we'll really be leveraging that, and we'll be leveraging our balance sheet. And we think all of that will hopefully lead investors to say, hey, this company has been a strong growth company. It will continue to grow. This is a good company to be a part of. And then in summary, me, and as I think a number of people on this call know, that they can write to me, and it might take a few days, but I will get back to every shareholder that writes to me, whether it's 6 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night. I do respond. So Tim, look, that's a really short summary and an introduction for investors. And I think the main purpose of today was let's try and open it up and get some sort of
interaction going. No. And I think I can definitely attest to that. We've introduced many, of our network to Peter, and their response has always been, he's a very communicative and very responsive CEO for a company that, you've got I think it's a headcount Peter, of, correct me, I think 80 plus now. You've expanded
Yeah,
the team recently.
we're about 100. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so for a CEO of a company of 100 people, he is incredibly on top of on top of his game. So definitely, yeah, it's a new
Are
partnership
you
for
are you
us.
pitch are you pitching for a job, Tim?
I mean, we could do in-house, right?
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
don't want to step on Adele's toes. Good thing he's not on this call. But no, congratulations, Peter. I think recently we saw the market cap of Novatti double, right? And I think someone emailed in advance to us. I think it was Pepe. Um, you know, um, if that's going to help, accelerate the getting the banking license any earlier.
Um, okay. So okay. I don't think our market cap will influence the regulator, so that would probably be the first.
Unfortunately, yeah.
No, unfortunately, what it does do, Pepe, is it does open up. I think it does a few things. First of all, the market cap says to people, this company is circa $100 million company, and we've already sort of started to see some of the inbound, just the recognition from other industry players that are bringing sort of deals to us. I think the regulator would look at it and say, oh, yes, they are obviously a substantial company. I think they're probably more looking, if they're going to do any more due diligence, they'd be looking at revenues and our balance sheet and so forth. In terms of them absolutely awarding the license, I don't think it will accelerate anything. However, maybe if I get to the real position, we keep talking to APRA. They are telling us that, that they will be meeting their public commitments of opening up licenses in the March timeframe, and we are just trying to get our final ducks in a row so that we are ready.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think it's something a lot of shareholders are looking to, that'll expand um, sort of the breadth and the depth of what Novatti can do and is allowed to charge for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Tim, and I'm not obviously a share broker and I'm not giving advice to anyone, but I don't really know that much value has been factored into our share price for the bank license. We've been, because it's been on hold for a year, we've been reasonably muted about it over the last year. And what we've been trying to show the market is that, notwithstanding, let's call it the bank license aspirations, we are building a strong, growing, let's call it sustainable payments business. So, hey, it's up for others to judge, but I don't think much value has been attributed to the bank license within the share price.
Yeah. No, agree. And I mean, obviously, we're not giving any advice here. Do your own research.
No,
But no, I agree with you 100%. We had another question come in, well, two questions really.
mm,
Um, and I guess one would lead to the other.
yeah,
William Yip says, you and the team are doing a great job. Thank you. And his question was, you mentioned a cross-sell of services. What is the
yeah,
number of consumers that you can reach out rather than B2B customers? And then
yeah,
another question that came in was, can you tell us a little bit about LifePay, and its offering potentially expanding in the future? So
yeah.
very much in that same vein.
Okay. I think, William, you wrote to me the other day. I think it's you. I put you on also to Hong Sun at LifePay. So just to sort of try and cover that off in two ways, Tim. So LifePay is definitely a B2C play, and it's a very, very, it will be a very full service digital wallet offering. Right at the moment, I'd call it a soft launch offering, it is very good. Um, the they've launched. So right now we're doing a 2-week soft launch. It's gone well. We're up to a bit under 200 test customers, and that's a process of onboarding, KYC, being issued a virtual Visa card into their wallet. And then for those consumers of a Chinese origin, they can sort of link to their Alipay and WeChat to make Chinese payments through to BPay. And then later on, they'll bring on services such as, buying stocks and shares, wealth management, remittances. So it'll be a very full-featured digital wallet play. In terms of Novatti, so that's LifePay, and Novatti owns a bit under a quarter of that at the moment. The Novatti, we do some B2C through our China Payments business unit, and we do some B2C in our prepaid card area. But at the moment, most of what we're doing is B2B, and our view is that we are building an ecosystem of the C customers through our B partners, if that makes sense. So B to B to C, and in particular, hoping we pull through the bank, and then really our B2B partners then start to look like channel partners for bringing on consumers into the bank. So we are really deploying at the moment a very extensive, set of infrastructure throughout Australia and in fact in many places across the world, so that we can now bring on more and more fintech and business customers on top of our network or rails, and eventually their consumers, and in some cases they'll be our consumers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and
so right now we are not a consumer brand and not trying to be that. I think that eventually you'll see the bank proposition will lead to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much a B2B to C strategy. I think that's really paid off. I think over the last couple of years that I've been following the story, I've seen Novatti grow their number of tier one partnerships in the B2B segment. Incredibly and consistently, right? And like you said, that's developed an ecosystem. And right now, what we're seeing is the start of, I guess, a rapid commercialization or monetization of that ecosystem. Yeah.
So and I think that I think in an earlier presentation, I think at the quarterly, I said that the last 6 months, what we've been trying to show is some of these major partnerships, and I said that what I hoped that people would see over this sort of period of time, this next sort of 6 months, is the monetization of some of those partnerships, and let's call it the infrastructure. So actually, for those that sort of get into hot copper, but there was someone's posted in the last day or so an announcement from a customer of ours called iGo Direct, who's a very large prepaid card company in Australia. They've essentially moved a major part of their business to us, and we've done a massive amount of work for them over the last 6 months, sort of, setting them up to do digital cards straight into their wallets. Slightly a little bit off guard to us, but they've sort of put out quite a bit of press yesterday. So that for us is an example of monetization. Sort of, we just didn't quite get to do an ASX announcement about it. And then actually sort of a little bit differently, but again a little bit of a surprise, is we have we've registered an application for a patent, and in fact Kian Jackson, who's on this call, is the lead. There's 3 inventors for that. Kian is sort of the lead inventor, and so we've registered an application for a patent with IP Australia, and I think the title is something like a compliant and secure multi-cryptocurrency payment gateway. And anyway, again, someone on Hot Copper has found that and posted that overnight. So a couple of things sort of happening, and but that sort of shows that's an interesting one. It's the first time we've ever registered a patent, and of course we've got to go through quite a lot of proof points on it and developing it, but it gets us into the digital asset world, and I think really sort of shows that we can be a future thinking company. So thank you to Kian for coming up with the intellectual power for that, because I'm sure that people would not think I did.
Yeah, we had a suggestion come through from Matthew Lim to say that maybe will there be an announcement on the ASX regarding the iGo cards? Since this will help to get the news out. I think there wasn't an initial obligation to announce it. It just
No,
happened to be
so
highlighted.
yeah, so I think this has not quite happened to us before, so I'm just going to get a little bit of advice on it. But yes, we
Definitely
might
looking
have
to.
to do that for either of those things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And, we've got another question come through from a shareholder.
yeah.
Said, amazing growth, Mr. Cook. We've seen, Afterpay or international players, I guess, do exceptionally well in fintech. And how do you see Novatti as a global player, rather than just in Australia, in the payment space? And does the Ripple partnership point to this? And yeah.
Um, so, uh, so we definitely want to expand beyond the Australian borders, and in fact, already a lot of our revenues come from offshore, both in our technology part and
Mm-hmm.
in some quite a lot of cross-border processing we do.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of so we've just got licensed in New Zealand. We are, and I think we have said to the market before, we have applied for licenses in other jurisdictions for one thing and another.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the absolute, I think about infrastructure or let's call it our platforms. The absolute base is licenses. Interestingly, most people think it's technology, but we think it's licenses. So we do have licenses in Australia. We are applying for licenses overseas. A lot of the tech we build is really applicable on a global basis, and we do have existing customers in other jurisdictions. So we'd already think that we are semi-global. We will become more global, and then I think if I can just leave you with a super aspirational thought, no, but just think about this. If Facebook or Google or they can just essentially start in Silicon Valley, other companies, WeChat can start in China, wherever. Why can a bank, a digital bank, not start from one country and yet become global? Now, it's trickier because you've got to comply with financial services regulation in each country, which may not be the same, and there'll be all sorts of rules. But we see that for the long-term aspiration for the bank is whereas banks were traditionally bound by physical bricks and mortar. I mean, if you had 3 branches of a bank, it was a big step to build a 4th branch and then a 5th branch. The deployment of a digital bank is going to be very, very different. So, we'll start in Australia, licensed in Australia, but if we may be able to acquire customers in other countries, and that's all from one home base. So, on the payments business, we're already doing a lot of work overseas. We are trying to get more licenses. And then on the theory of banking, and I'll say it's very aspirational, we think that in the long term, digital banks can be multi-country.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And with those aspirations, in becoming not just a bigger player but also a global player, maybe you can give us some comparables, that you see on the ASX for companies in the same space.
Okay, so probably I'll say by business unit. So if you look at our card issuing business, the comparable is e-merchants, which of course has got a market cap of $1.5 billion, and they are a great company, and they are across many countries, and they've been right at the vanguard of a lot of card issuing services. We would also, in a technology sense, love to. We really look up to Marqeta, not listed on the ASX, and obviously we do work with them in Australia, and we provide what's called BIN sponsorship services for them. But a lot of our tech and our capability mirrors that of Marqeta. I think on what we would call acquiring services, the there's a couple of significant listed players that do acquiring or payment acceptance, Tyro and SmartPay would be two. And, whilst both those companies are very much focused at in-store acquiring, our focus will be much more in online and e-commerce type acquiring.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think in cross-border payments, probably a listed company of note is OzForex. And, we do a lot of cross-border payments, a bit differently to OzForex. But, if you look at it, there's a bit of a blend. E-merchants, Tyro, SmartPay, OzForex. I think Novati's doing components of each of those. And as I say, we see that by providing multiple services, and then hopefully with a bank license as part of the ecosystem, that's a big, unique offering long term.
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess with respect to this question's coming from Daniel Martin, with respect to being a cross-platform digital banking solution for for businesses or consumers, would Air Wallets be considered a competitor currently?
Look, look, Air Wallets do. I mean, they're obviously a unicorn in cross-border payment services, and they've got a great global sort of story and great shareholders, and have raised a lot of money and have got a lot of licenses and tech. I think that what our aspirations are a little bit different to theirs, and in fact, it's more likely that over time we would, as an example, use some of their what I'd call rails or their infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
But we are trying. So yes, we both do cross-border payments. They've got different licenses. I think they got a license in Hong Kong recently, I think. But I'd say it's more likely that we will work with them on some things. And sure, you may compete on the odd client, but the reality is these are mega markets we're all facing into, and so there's plenty of room.
Yeah, excellent. So James Sheridan asked the question about, our what's that called? I've got it here somewhere. The restricted authorized deposit taking institution license,
Yeah.
and what's the plan for funding, for getting the RADI and the ADI license.
Okay, so James, thank you. I'm not sure if we've met, but if we haven't, please write to me anytime. So essentially the restricted license, the rules are you need $4 million of regulatory capital, and to get your license, the regulator wants to see that you've got sufficient working capital. And in our case, we've said that we want another $8 or so million for about a year's working capital for the restricted license. So let's say plus or minus $12 million. And I'm sort of trying to be a little bit careful about how I answer this, James. And I'm not sort of trying to be obfuscate it too much. But what we announced last year is that we'd done a fundraising into the bank subsidiary, and that was about $10 million. And then, with the COVID thing and the regulator, we actually handed that money back. So that is obviously one mechanism that we can raise into the subsidiary. That would be I think the obvious way at this point. Mm-hmm. There are alternatives, but that I guess would be how we looked at it in the past.
Yeah, beautiful.
Is that sufficiently? Is that okay, Tim?
Yeah, I reckon. All right. Yeah, I think we had a couple more questions. I think we'll just do maybe 3 more and then wrap it up. But yeah, so William Yip said that he watched a video on Rent, that Novatti had an equity stake in Rent, as well as a transactional agreement. Can you tell us more about that partnership and investment?
Yeah. Hello, William. So the listed company is rent.com.au, and then they have created a subsidiary called RentPay, I think Proprietary Limited, mm-hmm. and we have an agreement with RentPay that first of all, gives us equity in rent pay, and it's not it's a small amount of equity, and then a long-term supply agreement, as it were, with monthly fees and transaction fees and so forth. And then there is also a part of that agreement that under certain circumstances we can swap that equity into rent.com.au. I think the important part of, maybe the less said part of this is that the way we think about it is that rent pay or rent.com.au, however you want to look at it, is sort of a customer of Novatti's. It's sort of attached to our rails, and we think long term that some of our customers can then sort of integrate to rent pay and vice versa. So you'll sort of get this network of network effects with customers such as rent pay. So it might be that their consumers are accessing services of someone else who's also attached to our network.
Yeah, beautiful. No, that makes sense. Peter, I think I think to wrap things up, we'll do one more micro question about Novatti, and then I'll throw you one macro one about the payments industry. So, as a CEO and as a shareholder, where do you see the most growth coming in from Novatti? Which part of the business excites you the most, and should excite shareholders?
Actually, different parts of the business excite me. I mean, it's great to see. We've got some really good team leaders who are really passionate about the part of the business they're driving, and for me, it's just great to be able to help those people essentially just run a business within a business, and they're with all have got their own passion and they're driving their business unit. I think overall the biggest growth will come over the next 18 months from the acquiring business, which is essentially at the moment is virtually it's at ground zero. So Kian, who's on this call, is running that, and so we are essentially launching what we think will be a very major business over the next few weeks. But we're seeing strong growth in our issuing business. Cross-border payments, there was a little bit of a hit for that in COVID, which we're now just sort of getting over. And then, and then I guess I'm just on immersion, super excited. So that will launch in the US in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, if we've done Australia, we've got New Zealand, we've got the US, then one would assume that we'd be thinking about Southeast Asia and Europe, following that. So that's just a global platform play in itself. So all of these are sort of exciting business development areas themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, following the company, I think a common theme that runs throughout is that Peter, your management style is very much mentoring and developing partnerships. You're not about cannibalizing a relationship just to drive short-term revenues. It is very very good to see. I think in terms of a long-term perspective. I mean, as a veteran, in the tech and payment sector, what are some?
Oh, you've just got a question that's come in from Todd, I think.
Yeah, let me just. It's in the chat. Here we go.
Okay.
What's the plan of the joint venture with High Impact?
Hey, Todd. Hello. So you've been I don't know. You've been really reading into something. I don't know. Is that in the 4C or maybe it's in the accounts or somewhere? So High Impact is. It's a joint venture we've got. It's in Mauritius, or actually the Seychelles, with an African entity. We historically we put in a couple of $100,000 into the entity. It at the moment is a very minor piece of revenue. It's a very very minor part of our business. I mean, I don't think I've ever spoken publicly about it per se. But it does give us a good foothold in with a very significant bill payment and transaction partner in Africa. So I think what I'd say to you is today it is, a minute part of the business. but it's something that we'll extract value out of over the next couple of years as a window into Africa.
All right. Hope that
Sorry, Tim.
answers your questions, Todd. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent.
It's a bit of a
Yeah.
one-way thing here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
We had that. I mean, lends your background in telecommunications. What was that?
simplex and duplex.
Simplex.
There
Yeah.
you go.
There we go. Yeah. You've Peter, you've been around the block in the tech and payment sector quite some time now. What are some global trends and recent shifts in the payment landscape that you've observed, and how Novati's positioned to capitalize on that?
Yeah. Thanks for that question to finish off, Tim. I think that look. First thing is you've got a whole effective digital transformation. So every industry, I think, as I said before, every industry's going through digital transformation. It could be a manufacturing plant, anything, but in financial services, it is massive, and every process you think about in financial services, there is opportunity to automate. I think someone told me they used to work for one of the banks in WA, and a home loan went through 13 processes to get approved, something like that. And we're not in home loans, but you can imagine that could be so automated, most of that. And so I think we're seeing this massive automation. I think that we're seeing that companies are just they're very online and very digital and very, let's call it cloud-like. So, to be able to integrate a digital wallet to, say, to a mapping app, or to be able to load a virtual Visa card into someone else's digital wallet, or to integrate that digital wallet to a rental app or whatever. We're seeing that sort of ability to integrate digital services. I think that in Australia, we're seeing with the Hayne Royal Commission that the banks are really retreating to core business. Pretty obviously that the banks have pretty quickly got out of wealth management in general, sort of in some insurance services, and I think they're in part retreating from payment services. Or if they're not retreating from payment services, some of the more complex ones that they just maybe don't have the expertise for, that the opportunities are there for the fintech companies. So to me, there's a thematic here that banking is a super important industry, but it's an industry that was built a long time ago. And so whether it be in foreign exchange, whether it be in loan handling, whether it be in credit management, nearly any part of the financial services or banking system can be disintermediated or disrupted. So we're sort of super focused on the payments area, and that's sort of just, we just think there's so many opportunities there. I mean, and even a simple thing like getting the principal issuing license from Visa. Up until a few years ago, the only issuing licenses that Visa had granted were to banks in Australia. So, even players such as Visa are seeing that, their natural partners aren't just the banks. I don't know if hopefully that answers that, Tim, in part or full.
No, yeah, definitely agree. I think, excuse me, it's a big pie, right? And a lot of players, and I think it's not always a direct competition for a certain.
Todd's just come in, just update on the neobank license. Just probably went through it a bit before, Todd, but so essentially APRA are, giving guidance to us that their public guide, essentially their guidance, their up-to-date guidance is that they will be reissuing licenses starting from March. Now, our research says that that's still the case, and we are preparing for that. Now, it might slip. I don't know, it might slip a month or hopefully not. But, we are dealing with a government regulator, but at the moment, we're planning on licenses being issued in March, and we're being as ready as possible, trying to, dot I's and cross T's of the last things to do for that.
Beautiful. I think Todd's satisfied with that answer.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think actually a really good one. Last one. I know we said last one a couple of times now, but Peter, I think I think Novati's been picking up traction on the market, and Michael is asking this question. Do you have any comments on the increase of social media attention Novati has received of late?
Um, uh, so, Michael, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking there, but I'll answer it how I feel. I think the first thing is like social media. It's obviously a very pervasive way for people to communicate, and I think that it being enhanced by COVID, but we're seeing that social media is very strong for investors communicating. Twitter groups or Facebook groups or Robinhood or whatever. So I think that there's just this natural, rising of the tide of investor communication on social media. Now, Novati has, one of the things we've tried to do over the last year, we've tried to improve ourselves in many ways, but one of them is to improve our public profile and, the amount of communication and audio or video sessions I'm doing, or just improving our the look and feel of our ASX releases or announcements. So I would say as Novati, we are trying to catch that's wave. We're not trying to run our business from it, but we're happy that we're getting noticed, and hopefully, and of course, like any stock, in the end, we've got to do the business internally. So deep down, like, it's nice, you want to have your share price moving, and you want to have people talking about you on Hot Copper or Twitter or whatever, but we have to do the business as a company, and deep down, in the end, that's going to be the proof point.
Yep, yep, and I definitely appreciate that. Um, yeah, I think we got to be careful with what we see on social media, right? Because there can be a lot of paid endorsements and people who are just pumping stocks out there. But I think we're glad to say that a lot of all the growth that Novati's seen on social media is really organic. I mean, it has been an intentional, sort of facing the market facing approach, but it you know it's been very largely organic. Um, so thanks, Peter. I think that'll wrap it up for today. Whatever questions we didn't get a chance to get to, what we'll do is we'll link you up with Peter via email. So don't feel like you missed out. We just want to get the most out of everyone's time here. So thanks again, Peter, for joining us today. Thanks for presenting. I think.
Hey, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Tim and Omar and Spark Plus. And hey, let's hope we can keep this ship moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. What we'll do is we'll leave our contact details up on the screen, but feel free to log off whenever you need. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks Peter again,
Thank you.
and we'll catch you all soon.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Thanks all.